Hello, hey everyone. Welcome to today's show. And this is our interview segment for which we meet every Friday. Sometimes we don't meet depending upon the availability of the guests. But for today, we have Thomas. And I'm pretty sure you guys have seen Thomas before on our other shows. But Thomas, welcome. I think this is the first solo episode that we are doing. So
Yes.
welcome again. And do you want to reintroduce?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. And well, we know each other meanwhile. And this might not be, maybe it's not the only one that we ever do, but else there are different ones like analysts going wild, CRM convos in the hot seat. Later today, shameless plug, I'm doing kind of an online workshopping with John Reed about creativity and AI creativity, basically. Digging into is an AI creative or what? So this is going to be fun as well.
Yeah, workshop sounds very interesting. And we have Sarita in the audience. Sarita, hello. And she's saying,
Hey, Sarita.
yeah. I think she's also interested in learning about trends. So let's dig right in.
She also should know one or the other. Working for one of the 12 CRM vendors that, according to Kate Leggett and her recent CRM Forrester Wave, matter most.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Yeah. So let's talk about the market. I think the overarching market, Thomas, in your view. I know we have been debating a lot. I mean, from my perspective, every CRM vendor out there has very, very, very distinct position. They all shine. And I think you don't agree with that, right? So maybe touch on that. How do you see the market? Do you not believe in any of the vendors in the market? Do you like, okay, when you look at them, do you feel that they are probably going to disappear in the next 5 years? So talk about that, I guess.
I wouldn't say that they are necessarily all totally different. Of course, as every vendor in every market and market segment, they're all trying to position or make themselves appear different from the rest of the pack.
Yeah.
So that's not necessarily the case. So if I'm looking at vendor pitches, sometimes it's not hard to imagine just having a ChatGPT run over the presentation and give another vendor's logo to it. So that's sometimes attendees excluded, of course.
Yeah.
Well, in the audience, I mean.
Yeah.
So this is sometimes a bit. It's difficult to position oneself in a way that's truly unique. And after all, what does CRM do? It supports sales, service, and marketing. That's basically it. There's a set of activities and processes that salespeople, marketers, and service people follow. Well, let's include field service. Then we have the technicians as well.
Yeah.
So, and this is bad as it is from my own soul. I'm doing that since '95. No rocket science. So, and the rest is basically technology adoption. So what these systems, by the vendors, by the way, what these systems need to do is make life easier for me, not for my manager, but for me, so that my manager can shine. So that's the usual thing, right? So unless my manager is too egoistic and egomaniac, then making him shine or her makes me shine. So this is what these systems need to achieve, without exception. Some do it very, very well.
Yeah.
Others not so, and some do it very well without them being known. This is then a matter of Sarita analyst relations. And of course, marketing, self-marketing and self-positioning. So, well, picking on Sarita because she's here now, she's one of the best in that industry. So, just to not be misunderstood here.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with that for sure. I mean, she's definitely one of the best. So now, I mean, based on how you are describing CRM, the way I'm taking this is obviously you are describing very transactional scenario, which is great. I mean, that has been there since 1995 is what you are saying. You have been in this game, right? So that doesn't sound very trendy, I guess. I mean, it doesn't sound that, we have any sort of excitement in this space. So what I'm really looking for is, are you seeing any sort of progress as a category when you look at CRM? Do you foresee any sort of trends that are going to be prominent today as well as in next 4 or 5 years, I guess?
5 years is far out. 5 years. So what the next thing is probably pretty much a consolidation on this craze that we have with generative AI and agents. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there are some notable people of non-CRM companies. Well, they are one of the biggest CRM vendors that are saying that SaaS is dead, or that are kind of misquoted with that statement. But what we are about to see is, let's say, a different architecture of applications that still have the same objective: help the users do their job better and easier. And from an adoption perspective, from a business adoption perspective, they probably look into efficiencies first, which then is not really the right thing because that leaves the users behind. So there's the technology angle that helps getting the job done better, from transactional down to engagement. Also, this transactional CRM and the engagement levels that are there, the systems of engagement, as they were called a few years ago, that'll merge again. So it's like a social CRM. Nobody talks about social CRM anymore because CRM in itself is social. I mean, it's about people to people, supported by technology. Yes, and this is where we will see, well, a confluence, basically, that we'll have more aggregation of these types of systems again. And that will be based upon data. I mean, we see it all around, data clouds of some type. Earlier, they were called CDPs. Now they are called data clouds. So it means the CDP Institute needs to have a repositioning as well. The other thing that is constantly going back and forth is the constant battle between suite and best of breed. I mean, we are in the third iteration of seeing suites again. First time, early 90s, and then in the noughts, and now again, disrupted by best of breed vendors all of the time, which is good because that forces the suite vendors to rethink their stance. And that gives a constant circle of improvement. How this improvement will look like, I don't dare to foresee, because the next level is agentic. However that will look like, and however that will help, because that has some difficulties as well. They are based on LLMs, which are inherently non-predictable. We used to call it hallucination. And who wants a hallucination in a business life? You actually want predictable processes. Maybe infused with some variations and some flexibility where needed. But at the end, you want to have something very predictable. And that is something that all vendors that I know of are still working on to achieve this. Or they're all saying that they have it, but no, not yet.
So from the interaction perspective, I guess, and to your comment related to users, so I think from the agentic perspective, the main difference is going to be really for the users, because now they don't have to remember those screens. They don't need to remember these steps. I think they may be able to interact using text, which is going to be a huge value add from the user interaction perspective. So you are saying that none of the vendors have that. Um,
Yet.
when do you see, yeah, but I mean, when do you foresee that might come? Let's say when you look at the interaction change, is it going to be again 3-4 years, 5 years? What do you see?
Well, there's this dilemma that says short term we are tending to overestimate what's possible, and long term we are underestimating it, right? So I think this will be in the next 12 to 18 months that vendors have that more or less under control. I mean, they're already working hard on it. So if you're looking at those who are coming from a workflow arena, so I may or may not name names coming from, but if I say coming from workflow and no code arenas, they are pretty good at combining or infusing probabilistic elements like agents into predictive workflows, which are already there. So this is for the next 12 months, probably 18 months, the way they will go until they find something better, which may be just in some scientific papers that are not yet peer reviewed right now. But if you're looking at archive, that you'll find some gems regularly that will push technology or business technology, business vendors.
And go ahead.
As said again, and as Sarita likes it, so that it's about helping people with technology without, and this is of course a bit of the CEO agenda, well, increasing profit. You can do that in two ways. One is, well, increasing the top line, and the other one is decreasing the cost base. And then we are also talking, well, machine versus human, not machine with human. So this is something that the buyers actually need to solve for themselves.
So let's touch on this comment. So I think she's saying that it's about people to people, supported by technology, and obviously whether you talk about agentic, non-agentic, people to people supported by technology has been same. Do you see this changing in the new era of AI? Since now a lot of heavy lifting is going to be done by agents. So do you see that changing?
Yes and no. So if you ask the people who have drunk a lot of the Kool-Aid, and I mean a lot, then it's technology to people. And we, to some extent, already see that. So in self-service scenarios, right? It's been technology to people for quite some time. Just that it used to suck. And now it starts to suck less. And what do I want in a self-service scenario or in a service scenario? I want a solution fast. Yes, and the right solution fast. So there it's probably also perfectly adequate to first interact with technology and then with a human if the problem tends to become too fast. This is also appealing to, well, the C-suite of any business, because the more I can automate away, the less people I need, the less retraining I have, the less hiring and firing I need to do. And that improves my internal efficiencies, which is probably offset by, well, the better responses I get, the more demand I get as well. Well, for any business, the more successful I am, the more problems I create. It's sort of inevitable. So there's no perfect process. It means there are more problems that, well, probably, well, the number of questions probably increases faster than the technology can solve at any given time without, well, adding yet another NVIDIA high-end CPU or GPU to your system. Or, well, in former days we would have said a P-series server of IBM. So that needs to scale as well. And of course, those thingies have a price tag too. So which always needs to be considered as well. The main
Yeah, no.
problem there is, now we can meander around, the main problem there is pricing, actually.
Yeah, so is that consistent with the engagements that you have done? I don't know. I mean, overall, if you look at the state of economy right now, especially today, I mean, in last 2 days, everything has changed, right? So overall, from the pricing
Not
perspective, do you see any sort of changes, from the pricing, let's say again in next 3 4 5 years? What are you going to notice, overall from the trend perspective? I know overall software spend is very high, and with AI it's going to be higher.
That's true. Yeah. One thing is for clear, pricing models as we see them right now in the SaaS world won't
Yeah,
hold. Many of them won't hold. Some of them will.
yeah,
But what for sure will not hold true is a pure per seat model, because if there is no seat, then there is no price tag for the seat. Yeah. So it
yeah,
means we need to find something else. What is also for sure is that many a vendor, well, pretty much every vendor needs to maintain their own revenue stream or
yeah,
increase it even. Yeah. So means what we very likely will see, whether we like it or not, is a repetition of what failed with the advent of SaaS. You know this: no cloud and no login, no software and no login.
yeah,
Vendors have been incredibly good at creating login again, and that we will see in other ways. So we will see a push towards
yeah,
what I call value-based pricing.
yeah,
We sometimes already see it,
yeah,
like, well, one vendor tying their price to cases solved automatically without human intervention.
yeah,
And so they're saying, okay, this is $2. Well, it's not $2, but this is $2. If your people don't need to intervene and my
yeah,
system solves it, it costs
yeah,
you. If your people need to intervene, then it costs me, which is a good push. And it remains to be seen whether this is something that will be used more widespread or approached more widely. Other vendors that are coming out of the no-code and low-code area, they are
yeah,
charging for the developer seat and not for the usage. Whether
yeah,
that is viable for them remains to be seen as well.
yeah,
Others are charging per deployed process. So there's a route away from pricing that is disconnected from value to, let's say, proxies of value that
yeah,
that the vendors at least can argue about. This is somehow tied to the value delivered, kind of
yeah,
consumption based. Yeah, so the more you use it, the better it
yeah,
obviously is. Whereas I would question the obviously, because it
yeah.
just might be poorly coded.
Yeah, no, and I think we have debated this as well.
Mm.
Overall, in terms of
Yeah,
the value based and
yeah,
consumption based. And my take with this always is that when you look at value based, value could be subjective. So even if a vendor is saying that they have solved the cases, the customer might not agree. Okay, and the implementation of that might be extremely challenging as well. Because let's say vendors don't agree, then are you going to refund? And if you are going to refund, then you have to have some sort of reconciliation flow, um, to be able to resolve. So now you are sort of introducing these billing nightmares. So it's not as easy. Theoretically it sounds good that that's how it should be priced, but technically speaking, I mean, look, the vendors are in the business of
mm.
selling software.
Yeah.
Right,
No,
and it's up to.
they are in the business of selling a solution to a problem.
They are, but like, so,
Mm.
okay, let me ask you this question, Thomas.
Mm.
So when you buy iPhone, okay, Apple does not necessarily guarantee how you are going to use it. If you simply throw in gutter the next day, they don't care.
Mm. Of course
Now,
they don't,
if you
because
feel
mm,
that you did not get any value out of it, that's not their problem. That's your problem.
that is so wrong, so wrong. Ha! John. Well, I mean, that they care is so wrong. That's part of the problem. That's part of the problem. So what is still very prevalent thinking is inside out.
Yeah.
So I sell you something and that is my success. So what should be thought of is your success is my objective. If I make you successful, then my success comes as a consequence. And that thinking is far stronger and far longer term and far more engagement oriented than a thinking that says, well, I hit you on the head and then I run away. This is what the old style thinking is in very drastic words. Yeah, so I don't care. It's my translation of your words from before, right? So and this works short term. It works longer term if I manage to be, now I need to name a name. If I manage to be a Microsoft and be ruthless enough to basically kill off everything that is around me. Like that's what made Excel big, for example. There was something better around before, and well, they basically poisoned it. Or look at server infrastructure, same thing. The first iterations of Windows NT have been not so good. Networking servers, Novell was far better, but they managed with different means to get around competition. Not that I do say that these are illegal means, but they managed with other means to get around competition. They by far didn't have the best product. Means they didn't really care about the customer. And it works. I just say it's not the right way. It works for few. I mean, Google. Look at Google. They had a great idea. And, well, it works for them too.
So John has very interesting comment here. So John is saying this video, however, is value-based. I'm getting objective value from this discussion. So now let's change this a little bit, okay? We are going to have a little fun.
Let's open the purse.
So he's getting a value out of this video. And let's say if he was paying, and right now he's not paying for this video. Okay, so let's try this, okay? So we are going to set different price point. So let's say, we'll set $100 for this episode, okay? Let's say how John feels right now. If he's going to get value out of it, maybe $1,000 and maybe $10,000. So John, maybe you respond, okay, where would you feel that you are probably not going to get value if we had these price point? 100, 1,000, as well as 10,000. Thomas, do you want to address that by any chance? Do you really feel, in my mind, value is always subjective. It's always subjective to the price that you are paying. If you are getting something for free and you have plenty of time in your and you can afford to spend that, then you will feel that you are probably getting value, right? But if you are paying for something, then it's going to be subjective to that, I guess. So that's my take.
In this instance, yes. Let's look at this value-based pricing scenario that I mentioned before. So this is a service scenario, obviously. So what the clients, every one of the clients can calculate is an average cost of ticket, always. So because there is they have some cost of technology, and they have the variable cost is the time of people that they spend. So they know pretty well what it does cost to solve one ticket. Means if my technology solves the issues without human interventions, then I have an upper limit of, I have the value that I can generate. A ticket gets solved without human intervention, and it's creating value for the client as long as the price tag that I charge is lower than that. So yes, we still need to have an agreement about what solved does mean. So that is fine. So I don't say it's trivial, but this agreement still needs to be there. And for certain scenarios, by far not for everything, I can do that. We had that also before in e-commerce scenarios, right? So whereas the definition was right or wrong, that well, basically the definition was each sale is an incremental sale, and I charge you 10%. So this is a hybrid between consumption-based and value-based, I'd say. Look at credit card charges. So what is the value? Well, I hate it if the vendors charge me for that because it's their cost of business. But but that's an attempt into that direction as well. They are making life easier for someone.
Yeah.
The vendor doesn't need to run to the bank with a pocket full of change and count it there or have it counted there. So the process is far easier. So there's value in there as well. Hence, we are all using cards, right?
Yeah.
Or the ones on the phone. So even easier to tap it. Yeah. So whether the right or the wrong one is priced in these scenarios is quite different. So bottom line is, in many a scenario, it is possible to calculate the value. In many a scenario, it's also possible to agree upon what solution means or what value achieved means. And once I have that, I have a contract that I can measure with a mutually agreed set of KPIs. And then there will be exceptions and there will be discussions. There are now discussions, right? If I go for an implementation and, if an SI goes for an implementation, sells the services, and let's say the statement of work was not written well enough, then there will be discussions on price. There will also be discussions on quality and on services delivered. Same for software. Everybody sells some piece of software that can do this and that and whatnot. And guess what? It doesn't always do that. Then there are discussions too, regardless of the pricing model. So this is an argument that is a fake argument, actually. So the argument that is important to address is, at that point in time, if you're going into any consumption or value-based matrix, is the CFO will get a shiver, of course, because his or her predictability is gone. On the other hand, do they need this predictability as long as they do know that they are, each thing that doesn't get addressed by, whenever this price tag comes in, we avoided a higher price tag. So this is an important discussion to be had, but a discussion that is difficult as well. It's a different model. It's a different model.
So let's peel some more layers here. So, from the CFO's perspective, and I know that you get involved in a lot of different, CRM selections too, I guess. And I don't know how closely do you work with CFOs, right? We work with CFOs, all the time. And I'll tell you my personal challenge when we get into these engagements, and especially when you are going to have any sort of consumption-based or value-based pricing. Okay. The challenge, one thing that CFOs always don't like is uncertainty, and which is the theme of 2025, I guess. They just don't like it. Okay. So what they want is a very predictable spend. Okay. Value is great. Okay. But they don't know when they are signing that contract, whether they are going to get any sort of value or not. But one thing they do know is that when they are signing the contract, that's going to be a cash out from their financial statement.
And now here's the rub. Even in an old style implementation, they don't know whether they get the benefit or not. So they know, let's take a per-seat implementation. So even worse, an on-prem implementation with the big upfront cost. So what is for certain is it'll cost them X. The value generation may or may not happen. It comes far later. That's the use of the implementation, as you very well know. So there they bet on a promise as well. So what changes in a scenario like this? The structure of the business case changes. The calculation of the business case changes. And if the business case is fake, fake news is the new word right now. Everything is fake news.
That's not as common in 2025 anymore, I guess.
Yeah. If the business case is massaged, then and I as a CFO sign off on a massaged business case,
yeah,
then what's the difference in the problem? There is none. There is none. So what needs to be there is trustworthy people that do not do business cases based upon what they want.
Yeah.
What's their pet project?
Yeah.
But on data that, well, can be trusted. And this is the core problem. And that has been the core problem forever, basically. And I mean, we are people, so we all have our pet projects, and sometimes we interpret data slightly different. Or, well, not sometimes, always we interpret data slightly different. If you and I are looking at something, let's say at a balance sheet, we see different things. And if John looks at it or Sarita looks at the same balance sheet, then, well, that will be yet something else. I mean, that's why financial analysts are sometimes appearing to have drunk something or smoked something when they expect something. And it's the same thing.
So again, I think going back to the comment that I made and adding some more from the CFO's perspective, right? So overall, I understand the value-based argument, but again, what I was trying to get to is when you look at the CFOs and any of the business cases that you are trying to mention, right? Business case is a business case. Business case is a forecast. Nobody can guarantee that they are going to get any sort of sales results or marketing results. Okay, nobody can guarantee that, right? But one thing is definitely guaranteed is your cash out from the CFO's perspective, right?
That's guaranteed.
That's gonna go once you sign the contract. Okay, that's guaranteed. So now, from their perspective, what they like and what they like to see is that okay, I get that, Thomas. If you are going to give me value, I'm going to appreciate that. I'm probably going to give you really good bonus and tip and whatever you need. Okay. But right now, my pain point is that, okay, if I'm signing this contract, I want extremely predictable costs. Okay. So now for me, when I do any sort of consumption-based or value-based, the variability is there in costing. And that's the biggest pain point from the CFO perspective. The way they like to approach this is that, okay, if I'm signing a contract, the easiest pricing always, okay, you might not agree with me on this, okay, was always user-based because you can always forecast. One thing from the CFO perspective is always, I mean, they like technology, but technology adds a lot more variability. That's why they like to add a lot more people, even though they know in their heart that's probably going to be inefficient. Okay, well, but it's much easier to fire people than to fire technology, I guess.
That's probably the case, but the way I see it, and I'll use drastic words right now, per seat or big upfront is guaranteed loss. It's guaranteed loss. So and that's why CFOs will need to think different. And I think they are actually the smaller problem. The bigger problem is what John wrote in his age 32 comment, is the big problem is that the vendors will go out of commission because they don't deliver value. Right. So from a CFO point of view, let's look at the CFO again. So if I go into a value-based contract, like let's put the extreme example, no value. I have my KPIs. Let's say case is solved. Let's just use that as an example because it's fairly easy. As an example, fairly easy. No case solved, no money out. Where's the problem? So worst case, I pay what I paid before. The people. Worst case, I pay what I paid before. So where's the problem? If I buy per seat, well, I pay the people and the software vendor. So I'm worse off in any case. So that's why we will see, and it's something that John wrote a minute before then, that it will become hybrid. So the requirement for predictability is given in a value-based scenario if I have my set of KPIs and did my business case right. If I have that, then every case solved, sticking to that example, every case solved saves me $3. Just to put a number on it. So this is predictable. The number of cases are not so predictable. And every case solved saves me $3.
Yeah. So let's look at this more from the vendor's perspective as well. So I get the argument about value. Let's say if I'm a software vendor here, okay, I am taking their side now. Okay. Now I am selling a piece of technology. That piece of technology has a cost, just like any physical good, right? So when I sell software, I'm paying for my cloud vendors, I'm paying for my licensing, I have infrastructure, I'm paying for people. My margins are probably, I don't know, maybe 20%, 30%. Well, yeah, I mean, they do offer a lot of discount, and it's not as easy.
Support margins used to be well in the 80s, right? If not 90s.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if those margins are still there, to be completely honest. And sure, I mean, yes, software vendors are doing good, but I don't know if you have those kind of margins anymore, even in the software business.
It's gross margins, of course, but they are.
Yeah, because you have sales cost. Yeah. So do you think that, let's say, if this is going to be completely contingent, you know, and I think you mentioned hybrid, right? But even with contingent, I don't think it's a good business for vendors. And I don't know if they can sustain that. That would be my challenge. If I'm a CFO of a software company, I don't know how I'm going to sleep.
As I said, the problem is not the CFO of the buyer. The problem is the vendor. So what we see is pretty much them avoiding value pricing like the devil holy water. So this, because they all of the sudden are no more as sticky. Well, and we have seen, or well, they will, even in these types of scenarios, they will find a way to become sticky for good as well as for bad. So what these models try to or will evolve into, or try to push into is, well, it's let's call it a bit of a change Darwinism. So if you, it's kind of like the meteor that went down 60, 70 million years ago, and all of a sudden mammals were preferable to dinosaurs, which is a moment that we may or may not see here as well. If this comes, it's pretty much the same for the vendors behind the scenes. Meanwhile, we know that it is good to only to some extent to work on a cloud vendor, or to put everything what you have as a software builder on a cloud, on somebody else's cloud. At some point in time, I mean, this is a company that wants to make revenue as well, and at some point in time, at some point of usage, amount of usage, your cost will be higher than running your own data center. Many a company realizes that. Meanwhile, even buying companies realize it. Meanwhile, that having their own cloud means their own set of data centers. After all, at some scale, is beneficial. So we'll see some pushback there as well. Look at token pricing, which is more consumption pricing that all those AI vendors, the LLM vendors use, because they don't have anything better there. The tokens cost plus. Does that generate value for me? If I pay for tokens, this token or this number of tokens that I pay for generates value for me only if I get a good result. And then we are back to hallucinations and good prompts. And this triangle between the technology used, the one who helps me implementing it, and my, as a buyer, business case for what is important for me. So where's the bang for my buck? What do I really need to solve? That is the second big problem. One is the vendor. The CFO is the smaller one. The CFO gets convinced if the business case is okay, but the business strategy is the third one. Fourth one is then the one who implements it for me, because they sell manpower and not they sell hours basically, so that they have the same thing. And all of a sudden there you can get into a blame game if there are too many different parties involved. So as I said, I don't say it's easy, but it's the model that is most forward looking. It's outside in, not inside out.
Yeah, very interesting perspective. So we have a lot of comments. So let's go over them. So let's see if John is willing to pay, and I'm going to send the invoice to John. Okay. So let's say how much he's willing to pay. He's willing to pay for that scenario. So hold on. John is getting the invoice. Okay? Yeah, exactly. So hold on. So I think we covered this comment, I guess. No, not this one. Yes. It is interesting how consumption-based pricing is so much more prevalent in cloud infra than enterprise software. John, so I'll tell you this. Okay, so this is my perspective, and Thomas, you can provide your POV as well. So generally, in my personal experience, the reason why consumption-based pricing is successful in the cloud infra game is because the buyer is very different. They are far more technical. They understand how to estimate the pricing, and they are okay with that model. When you look at the software buyers are very different. They just don't have as much maturity. They don't know how to estimate this. They don't know how to plan this. So in my personal experience, I think that is the biggest challenge in these two things. And again, when I look at even the cloud, price estimation, it's way harder. It's way harder, even if I'm, let's say, a software vendor and simply trying to plan the cost, because as a software vendor, I need to translate this. And if my translation is off, I'm in trouble. I'm in real financial trouble. Because technically, when I sell my user-based pricing, I still need to translate this because I'm paying in the consumption-based. So as a vendor, I mean, obviously, it's easier for me, to be completely honest, because I pay in consumption-based and I'm selling in consumption-based. But that may not be as easy for the buyers. Go ahead, Thomas.
There are two things. One is it's about to change. Look at, Agentforce. That's a consumption pricing as well. And because there's, how will you sell a seat? You can't, because there's an agent. So this is one thing. So that'll become more prevalent as well. All LLMs are sold via token. And tokens are consumption. And here, from my perspective, the infrastructure point of view, the cloud pricing originated from the term of value as well. Because what did they tell us? Hey, you have your iron there that you need to replace every couple of years. You need to have your own infrastructure, your own real estate, the property. You need to pay gazillions of people to maintain all this stuff. We are doing it for less. It's pretty much the same with maintenance, with third-party maintenance. Pretty much the same there. So it's right. It's so much more prevalent there. Why? Because it's easier to show the value, and it's as long as you do not do the longer-term forecast. Because I mean, as I said, at some point in time, I become more expensive than you running your own data center.
Yeah.
And the business case was very easy at that time.
Yeah, so great points.
It will move to some extent into software as well, CRM or not.
Yeah, let's see, I guess. I mean, that's probably going to be a differentiation, and every pricing model is going to be there. Even today, I guess we have many different pricing model, and generally, obviously, pricing is going to be a factor because at the end of the day, the buyers need to do apple-to-apple comparison. From their perspective, they don't necessarily care whether this is going to be agent-based, consumption-based. They are looking at least 4 or 5 year forecast, and they are looking at how much variability they are going to get in that. So we have some more comments here. So John is saying, based on the enterprise software vendor, I know that does consumption-based. I can tell you that customers welcome this very much for a variety of reasons. And again, depending upon which customer you are talking about, John, and we have seen these scenarios as well, they don't appreciate when they get unexpected $200,000 bill because of that consumption based, because for whatever reason they did not understand and they are getting unexpected bill. Okay, from their perspective, what they need is a very predictable pricing. Okay, they don't necessarily care whether that is going to be consumption based, user based. In some cases, there are benefits of consumption based. For example, let's say if you look at slightly seasonal industries where you cannot necessarily forecast how many users you are going to have, let's say every year, in those cases, you have a lot of benefits because you are not necessarily tying yourself to number of users and you are still paying fixed costs. So in that fixed, when I say meaning relatively fixed per year or whatever. So in that case, the consumption based works far better. That's going to be slightly more favored. Okay, but the other side is different. So customers always look at, what is my cost every year? The variables could be anything. I mean, from their perspective, they don't necessarily care for that.
That's why it's good to plan.
Plan, but sometimes they don't know how to plan. Sometimes even as technical people, I mean, we have struggled, to be completely honest. Okay, because we just cannot forecast enough variables. For example, let's say if these guys are going to have, they say that some vendors say that, number of I don't know, sales orders in CRM, I don't know which vendor is doing consumption based. But for example, let's say if you look at vendors such as HubSpot, their pricing is always tricky because there are going to be so many different layers in the pricing that it becomes very, very, very tricky. How can you forecast how many pipelines you are going to have in next 5 years?
That's one of the other problems. So let's look at pricing models as well, and let's look into the CRM Forrester wave again. So there's one line on pricing strategy and transparency of pricing.
Yeah.
So none of these vendors ranks very high in that area. Why? Because they mix and match and do too many different things. So what does that create? Surprises.
Exactly.
All of the but this is independent of consumption and not consumption. So the consumption you can track. So you at all times, well, given that vendor gives you a dashboard or you maintain your own dashboard, at all times where you are at all times. So, and then if you implement something, any type of software, you want to achieve an objective. The objective is roughly one of three. You want to get a capability that you didn't have before.
Yeah.
You want to do something faster. Well, you want to drive revenue, let's put it like that, increase the top line, or you want to decrease the cost base. It's always one of these three, or a combination of these three. And heck, all of this can be tied to strategic KPIs. And too many businesses still fail to do that. So if they start doing that, then the surprises are gone, unless the business case is a fake. So, and then the problem still to come to different pricing models that go more into value are the surprises are basically with the vendors when they see that they are not as helpful as they claim to be. And then we are back to devil and holy water. So this is actually the main problem is not the buyer side. It's not the CFO. It's really not the CFO.
Yeah, very interesting. So let's
look at some more else comments. We have. I pay 50 now.
50. Okay, so John is getting invoice for $50. Okay, we all have this. This is screenshotted here. John is getting $50. Okay?
John, we make you a counter offer. Sam and I each take 8%. Let's say 2.5% if you get a client.
Yeah,
that's value-based pricing. Then.
And we can promise this, John, that you are going to get a client from this. Maybe pay $1,000 right now, and we'll promise that in the next 5 years you are going to get a client from this episode. Hopefully, there is enough value for you on that. Okay, so some more comments from John. So I would argue AI will force more consumption pricing for software. Let's start there and then see if we can get to value pricing off the back of consumption based.
He's right.
Yeah.
I would
You
frame
agree
it
with that, right?
differently.
Yeah.
AI will force a pricing model change
Yeah.
because, as said, where there is no seed, there's no seed-based pricing.
Yeah.
It will not force. Well, it will force a move into pricing. What vendors will do is enforce or try to establish a model that is better for them. And then we are back to consumption-based.
Yeah.
This is better for them because it's a bit more predictable for them, means for their stockholders. So that's why I mean, I've drunk my own Kool-Aid with value-based pricing, but this is what very likely is going to happen, with some notable exceptions.
Yeah, great points. So he's saying if we can't get consumption-based pricing, then value-based is really out there. I think we will see, what is going to be there. I guess it's always interesting arguments about pricing. Okay, John is saying, but I like a hybrid option. There's a baseline price, consumption or seed based, and then here is the value threshold based on KPIs measurements that Sam loves. Yeah, I absolutely loves until the market
KPIs
goes down and those KPIs are no more
I love KPIs
relevant.
too, as long as they are going my direction.
Exactly. Okay, so some more comments from John. He's saying some CFOs will insist on the predictability, but others will find some flexibility. Okay, this is why a hybrid model may work. Huh.
Yeah, it already does. I mean,
Yeah.
John brought the example himself. It's cloud infrastructure. Their CFOs, also CFOs, clearly have accepted a non-fixed pricing model.
Yeah, no, there's definitely some value to it, depending upon how you plan. So thank you so much for that comment. Then John is saying CFOs find value in consumption based once the light bulb goes off on how they are more agile and can scale so much better up and down when software licenses aren't tied to user seats. This is big in business that have seasonal and demand fluctuations in general. And again, I think, John, we are agreeing here. In some businesses, the consumption-based pricing is going to be cheaper than user-based. So you are right. So I completely agree with you that in some cases, I mean, we recommend, because if those are going to be, but not every business is seasonal. In some cases, you are going to have a lot more transactions, but you are not going to have as many users. For example, if you look at retail business, in that, and depending upon how you are pricing, CRM pricing is generally not based on dollar based, but ERP pricing is generally dollar based. So there are layers to that as well. If it is going to be dollar based, and if you're not accounting for that appropriately, sometimes the transaction or the consumption based pricing becomes far more expensive. But again, I mean, from the CFO's perspective, they are looking at their TCO, some predictability in that TCO, over the period of 5 years. So if the consumption based is going to be more, then obviously they are going to like user based. So they both have a place.
There is a great comment right at the bottom right now, and that goes back to the problem that I stated, the real problem.
Yeah, let's touch on that. So John is saying the problem with value-based pricing is the enterprise is a lot of vendors will go out of business.
That's the Darwinism I mentioned. The change in Darwinism. Yeah. So because this is depending on an event that happens, and some vendors will be able to change and adapt, and others not. That's kind of the Marines mantra: adapt and overcome. So it's kind of the same. Yeah. So there is a change in mindset that will come. And we have seen it before, driven by one or the other party.
Yeah.
In consumption-based pricing is vendor-driven basically, because they have seen a way of showing value different or changing the equation of the value transfer or value exchange.
Yeah.
Big cost up front is You pay me now and you may receive some value later.
Yeah.
This has a big hurdle. It's like the initiation energy in physics. If a nucleoid transfers from one plane to the other, it needs to go via this mountain, and this consumption base creates a tunnel effect. And that we hopefully see again.
Hopefully.
John just says some OpenAI prompts cost 1,000 per query. So, well, I haven't been able to create a prompt like that yet. But some of the prompts that I use have 7,000 or 8,000 characters. They are surely more expensive than a cent or two.
Yeah. So Sue is saying, is biases the selling point for CFO regardless of guaranteed results?
That's the predictability of the cost, I assume. So many CFOs are.
Yeah, go ahead, Thomas.
Nobody guarantees results. Who sells you something? Nobody guarantees you a result. The only result that a vendor guarantees you is that they write you an invoice. That's the only thing they guarantee you. Yeah. So the benefit you get out of this investment is, sorry, your problem. This vendor stance, yeah. So, and I of course promise you that you can get it, but never hold me responsible for it, or even accountable, even worse.
Yeah, and based on that comment, Thomas, I guess they are never going to trust the value-based pricing. So even if you are saying that you are going to have value, but you are not legally liable for that, I guess.
Oh, that's a different type of contract. So again, so there's this agreed set of KPIs, which is not there in other types of contracts. Well, there's another KPI, number of seats. So you have 5 seats, so I have to charge you 5 times X. So there's an outcome, solved or not solved.
Yeah.
And that I can count. And the number of solved times X is what I charge you. If there are too many non-solved, my problem, not yours. So it's just a different KPI, and this needs to get into more heads. Into more heads, and again, the problem is the vendor, because all of a sudden the vendor has skin in the game. Devil and holy water, right?
Yep, they definitely do. So I think we have too many comments, and I don't know if we can get through them. Do you want to go on any specific comments? I know we are close to our time now, so we need to close. Would you like to touch, Thomas, on any specific comments here? I know you wanted to touch one, right?
Yeah, so was one by, oh man, you have Sue got it scrolled away under some or another that I've seen here in the comments. It's gone.
Okay. So we can probably respond later. All right. So I think we are close to our time. You found
it is. I'm just blind. I need to get new glasses. Yeah.
Okay. So which one would you like?
Vendors won't be using AI to bring out new pricing models that are cheaper for the customer. That is a nice. That is pretty much the summary of it. Yeah, so they are thinking inside out and not outside in.
Yeah.
It might not even the other portion of it. It might not necessarily be cheaper.
Yeah.
If the top line grows more than the cost base. So that's the second scenario I mentioned. So we create top line.
Yeah.
Decrease cost base, or do something that you couldn't do before.
Yeah.
Which basically then increases the top line again. So ultimately, there are only 2.
Yes.
So, and a forward-thinking vendor will do that and should do that.
Yeah, no, you're right. All right, so I think again, we are close to our time right now. So Thomas, I don't know if you're going to have any sort of closing advice before we wrap.
Well, the advice for businesses in general is look close. Well, do your business cases carefully.
Yeah.
Do what is most important. What brings you the best benefit for yourself. When it comes to software selections, it's a manifold advice actually. When it comes to software selections, do it database, not because I have used vendor XYZ before and in my previous 3 companies and it worked. It just doesn't necessarily work in the 4th company as well. So do your software selections based upon the requirements that you actually have. So do your requirements and don't fake your business case. Please don't.
Yeah,
To vendors, think outside in.
Yeah, no, that's a great advice. And definitely, I mean, whatever worked for you in the past may not work for you in this case. So every case is unique. The context is unique as well. And the business case needs to be contextual. On that note, Thomas, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being here. Of course. On that note, if you joined for the first time, this was part of our interview and the podcast series for which we meet every Friday, somewhere between 8 to 11 a.m. Eastern, depending upon the availability of the guest. So I'll see you in the following weeks.
Okay, and let's do a last shameless plug before you switch off. 1 p.m. Pacific time. John and I on creativity and AI. That will be a fun part.
It sounds very fun. Thank you so much, Thomas, once again.
See you.